This is from Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same.
Friends.
Yeah, so this is a Minisode, and we wanted to talk about television because we don't want to we don't want to focus just on cinema.
But also, just by some chain of events, we both ended up watching the entire series of Friends.
The entire series. I watched it in a record time, like 4 weeks. I watched 10 seasons of television.
You literally binge watched it.
I was going through a weird time. I just didn't leave my house, basically. I would get home from work, watch it, go to bed, wake up, watch it, go to work, come home, watch it. And I did that for 4 weeks, and I have no regrets.
That's good.
I'm all about it.
Whereas my partner just got into it,
yes,
but she uses it as a sleep aid. So she will just put on a TV show she's familiar with, and it'll like make her pass out instantly.
Yeah.
But then I'm still awake, and I watch an episode or two,
and
then I turned it off.
You watched it by default.
I didn't watch it because I wanted to. I watched it just by proxy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like there's so many shows I have not seen and I really want to see. Like I have never finished Breaking Bad.
Oh, it's a great show. Better than Friends.
Yeah.
It's really good.
There's a lot of shows I really like. Detroiters, you know, Baskets. Like these shows are like Atlanta.
Yeah.
These are all shows that are like right up my alley. I haven't even seen Rick and Morty season 4 yet.
Oh, neither have I. I'd like to see that.
But I've seen most of Friends.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I love that you and I watched it with different emotional intentions. You were, I would argue, ambivalent, and I was 100% enthusiastic. But your memory's better because I watched it about a year ago.
And I literally was watching an episode last night and this morning.
Right.
And also, I feel like I fall asleep during the show too, so maybe I even subliminally like
retain the
episodes.
Do you dream Friends?
I don't think I have yet, but
you also watched it. Like I watched it so intensely that it all blurred. Like one episode to me was 20 hours.
Yeah,
because it all just blurs into one thing. Like you're skipping the credits too, so you don't even have time to like analyze what you've just seen for 22 minutes. You're like on to the next one.
And I watched it kind of
which
out
is
of order.
Super unhealthy.
Kind of watched it randomly and out of order. So just because of whatever the episode that was picked was. So sometimes I'd be watching like season 10. Sometimes I'd be watching season 1. Sometimes I'd be, I can go through all of the numbers if you want. But yeah, season 5.
I would like that. Yeah.
Sometimes I'd be watching season 7. Sometimes I'd be watching season 8. Some season 2. Maybe season 5 again.
Have you seen the whole series? Or
I've not seen every episode, but I've seen most.
So you watched the finale.
I watched enough of them to understand kind of the arc of what happened to all the characters' plot lines.
Let me ask you a question. Who's your favorite character?
Well, this is something that I wanted to talk about is the characters of Friends and how they kind of like develop over the show.
Right.
Because at the beginning, you're like, wow, I can see why this show works because these characters are all so well drawn.
Mm-hmm.
They all have their thing. They're all different enough. And they figure out these character archetypes, which are so easy to mine for material that there's always great situations.
Yeah.
That is like, Friends makes sense as a perfect situation comedy because these characters, the way that the characters exist, they usually drive the plot as opposed to the plot just like happening and the characters just happen to be there. It's like these characters get into scrapes because of who they are. Mm-hmm. So it's like, actually, this is great writing. But
it started out
great.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's interesting because at the beginning, when you start watching Friends and you haven't either seen it in a long time or you've never watched it in your life, I saw it when it was popular. Like I remember, I'm old enough to have been alive when I Will Be There For You or whatever the song is called. Like the theme song, when that was like a gigantic radio hit.
Who's that by?
The Rembrandts.
Oh, interesting.
It's written by
It's a good song.
It's written by some woman who died recently. I don't know her name, but she wrote that in a bunch of other really big hits in the 90s. And the Rembrandts just like got the song and then they...
Oh, she was just a songwriter and then...
Yeah, they gave it to this band who is like, has no... Obviously, nobody remembers them.
No. Who made the money on that deal, her or the band?
I feel like both.
I hope
Because that was
so.
during the golden age of record sales,
Right.
like the 90s. So I remember so many people owned the Rembrandt's album that had that song on it.
Right.
But like nobody listened to the other songs. They just listened to the Friends theme song.
It's a good song.
It's very good.
So you didn't answer my question. Who's your favorite character?
Oh yeah, right.
And why? Like, and we can get into it.
Yeah, my preamble was leading up to Ross.
What, you like Ross?
Ross is the best character on Friends, and maybe even one of the greatest characters in sitcoms, not television history, not movies, not media, but just like he's one of the best characters just in general. Because the beginning of the series, you kind of hate him because if you look at him in a modern light, a lot of people think he's kind of an incel.
Yes, definitely.
He's like kind of like a weird, hateful, like prissy, just like he just exhibits all of these negative traits. Whereas everybody else on the show has charm, is likable.
He's also the only grown up.
He's also kind of the only grown up.
He's the only one with a real career and had like a real partnership and had done adult things and then lost some of those things. Like he's divorced.
He
has his PhD in paleontology. Like he's definitely a grown up. Yeah. But he's also so childish.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
But he starts off the most flawed character. And by the end, you just like are like, Ross was A, the main character of the show, and B, the only one who is remotely interesting at the end.
It's interesting you say that because my gut reaction, I'm like, I feel like Chandler is the main character just in terms of enjoyment, but the only real arc of the show is with Ross.
Yeah, Ross has the only arc.
Pretty much the same the whole way through. Also, I apologize. I'm burping like a mofo.
Oh,
anyways, it's good you can hear it in your beautiful headphones. So I think on paper, he is the main character and he is the most important and he has the best arc and he is the most developed. But he's also, to counter your point, wait, is he your favorite character because he's objectively the most well-written or the most rounded?
Yes, but then also,
do you actually enjoy him though?
I do, because
why?
I like how complicated he is, because they will go to places that haven't aged well.
Yeah.
like weird kind of incel-y kind of moments. There's like that time, but it's like some of those situations still pretty funny because it's all rooted in the character. It's not like they're making. Well, I mean, there's a lot of problematic stuff in Friends. I'm not going to get into that, but they. Like the time when he goes to the self-defense guy because his friends keep scaring him. So he went to the self-defense guy and was just like, hey, can you tell me how I can get back at these women?
Right.
And it was like a women's self-defense thing. It's like, what would you do to like get back at these women? And stuff is like, that's like very like kind of yikesy. But then also it's like, that's a pretty funny comic situation because of who Ross is, not because of like, if any other character did it, you'd be like, okay, this is kind of terrible. But for whatever reason, Ross is charming enough / sad enough. And also just like, he's the only good like character for like physical comic situations.
Yeah.
Like he does great physical comedy. He's good with like sounds, like he screams in like hilarious ways. Like there's just so many moments where there's just so much, they just get so many diverse moments of comedy out of Ross. Whereas by the end of the show, like Monica, it's just like, yo, she likes to clean. And that's the only joke that they do.
They're just playing on her neuroses.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Because she's barely neurotic.
She's barely
like
neurotic.
Super high functioning and socially aware. And the cleaning thing is the only claim to her being like this neurotic, annoying person. Yeah. But she's not.
They don't have any, they have nowhere to go with Monica at the end of the series. Whereas Ross, her brother, is like, they still have so many things. I mean, they ended on a pretty bad note where it's just like a cliche rom-com thing.
Yeah.
But it's still like Ross is, he's doing something.
Yeah.
Whereas Monica's is like, yeah, I mean, she gets married and has kids or whatever because that's what you're supposed to do. But then after that, she's kind of like a hateful harpy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Phoebe. Phoebe is just so mean. By the end of the show, like all she does is just rip on people.
Oh, I guess that's true, isn't it?
Yeah,
I never
and
really
Chandler
thought about
was
that.
always sarcastic. He kind of softened by the end, but he kind of doesn't. He kind of lost the edge that made him charming and funny by the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he
he's
became very wholesome and
yeah.
I wonder why. What are your thoughts on Joey? Hit me with Joey's
Joey
arc.
is probably the most one-note character on the show.
Uh-huh.
He's dumb and handsome, and he's good at having sex with women.
Yeah.
And they mine that for a lot of pretty good jokes. And I love dumb comedy. Like I like Dumb and Dumber still.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do a lot with dumb jokes. Because you have to be smart to write a dumb joke, I feel.
Yes.
Like a good dumb joke, you have to kind of be smart. And Joey's like a good example of like writing a dumb guy good.
Yeah.
But by the end of I realized I should have said writing a dumb guy well.
Wait, what did he say?
I said writing a dumb guy good, which is somewhat ironic.
That's really funny.
But Joey is just so one note. He's so just like, he's a dumb guy. And that's kind of, they try to give him some edge by having him fall in love with Rachel. Like he gets some really tender moments.
Yeah. But also that doesn't make any sense.
But that doesn't make any sense.
When she gives birth and then he accidentally proposes and she says yes, that's maybe the worst part of the entire show.
I agree. Yeah.
It is so stupid. I will say in the moment I was wrapped up because I was, hour 12 of watching it straight, and I was in the world. I had my VR goggles on.
Yeah.
And
You're the only one watching Friends in VR.
In 360. And let me tell you, there's nothing behind me. It's just a flat image, but I was into it.
And your eyes are just so bad now from staring at a bright screen.
Legally blind.
Like 3 inches away.
Yeah. I don't know. I was wrapped up in the moment, but looking back on it, I was like, this is the most absurd, poorly executed writing I've seen in a long time. And it felt like a stretch. And the show definitely felt like it went on a little too long. Like they went to the bottom of the barrel and they were like, oh, there's nothing left. Yeah. Now what?
Because like these characters get married, they all had kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody had kids at some point. Like Phoebe had kids in the middle of the series.
Oh yeah.
She
I
had
forgot
twins.
about that.
Yeah, that was weird. Rachel has a kid, and then at the end she's going to Paris, but like, where's her child?
Good question.
And like Ross goes to the airport to get her. Where's the kid? Like I didn't.
What's funny is that kid is in barely. He's in like 3 episodes. What's his name? Jack.
It's a girl, and it's Emma.
Emma. Wow, I was out to lunch on that. Jack. Yeah. She's not in. She's in very few episodes.
Yeah, it seems like they were like, we have to make them have kids because it's a.
Oh, I'm thinking of Ross's first kid.
Oh yeah,
his son. That's what I'm thinking of, but it's not Jack. So Jennifer Aniston's character, whose name is Rachel.
What the hell?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So Rachel gets a job offer in Paris. She's going to move to Paris. She has no relationship at this point, but then Ross realizes he still has feelings for her and then chases her down at the airport, and that's how they end the series.
And then they're like really in love after that.
Questionable.
I
think it's interesting because they basically have 6 seasons where they are friends. They have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And then to just remove that and say, you know what? They're actually in love the whole time doesn't make any sense.
Well, was it because the friends are getting into their 30s, maybe 40s? I don't know how old they are in that episode.
Yeah, and Chandler and Monica are like moving. They're getting a house. They want to have kids.
Yeah, so
they're growing up.
They're doing that thing where they're just like, let's just hook up if we can't find anybody else. Like, they were pretty much, it was like a sad ending because they were like, we have given up and we realize that we love each other, but it's like, I mean, what else are they going to do? Are they just going to give it to some other minor actor who just comes in as now the love interest that Ross ends up with? No, you have to do like the...
I would have preferred... I mean, obviously it's a syndicated TV show, so there's only so much they can do in terms of downbeats, but I would have really preferred if they were like, yeah, we're all friends, and as life happens, we have to move apart and grow. And that would have been like reality, I think. That would have been really nice.
We were watching... we were like, what happened on 9/11?
What do you mean, like on Friends?
Like how did Friends present 9/11?
They never did.
They didn't. I looked it up.
Yeah.
So season 8, episode 1 is like the 9/11 episode.
Yeah.
And it's basically takes place at Chandler and Monica's wedding.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they don't even bring it up, and there's nothing in the credits.
There's nothing in the credits that acknowledges it. There's even like kind of a joke about terrorism or something in it, but
Wow, what
Yeah.
an insensitive show.
no, it's about people dying in a tragedy in France or something like that. Someone makes a joke like that.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, and it's like just even reminding people of any sort of tragedy in New York. I mean, with characters who live in New York in 2001, like September 2001, it came out like a couple weeks later.
Weird.
And then they don't acknowledge 9/11, which is like weird.
And then 2 years later, you brought up the fact that the series ends with Ross running through JFK Airport
Yeah,
to get Rachel, and that would have literally been impossible.
yeah. It's
Which
Newark
is-
Airport.
Right. Newark?
Yeah.
Newark?
Yeah.
Newark in New York.
Yeah, I don't know why they were flying to Paris from Newark, but whatever.
That's like flying to Canada from Gatwick instead
Yeah.
of the other one. in
Oh, that's
London.
a deep cut.
Yeah, Gatwick Airport sucks.
Yeah.
Heathrow's the other one.
Gatwick.
Yeah, suck it, Gatwick.
Suck it.
The nice thing about Heathrow is you just get on the Piccadilly line and you can get right to the center of London in like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, also another weird, like watching Friends from beginning to end is fascinating, and you will agree with this because you get to see so many guest stars who go on to be famous later.
Brad Pitt was already famous.
Yeah, but like Anna Faris
Oh,
from
yes.
Scary Movie was the surrogate for Ross or for Chandler and Monica's kid.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd marries Phoebe or whatever the hell at the end, I think.
Oh, right. That was before he was.
And Hank Azaria also was like Phoebe's boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed today,
Uh-huh.
because we watched the 9/11 episode, try and guess the cameo who happens right at the beginning of the episode. Which celebrity cameo? You will never guess this.
Who is it?
You have to guess. It's a man.
Tom Hanks.
No. Not famous. You see him every week, but you do not know his name, but you see him every week.
Ooh.
He's famous enough that if I told you who it was,
I
you'd
would be like, oh.
what the?
And it's like an actor?
It's an actor.
Oh.
I mean, this is,
Every week.
you see him probably every week if you watch television.
I don't.
Or
I mean, I do, but it's,
you probably,
every season
okay.
consecutively.
I'm not going to, okay, this can't go on that long.
What? It's not a news anchor.
No.
Who is it?
The A&W guy.
What?
The guy from the A&W commercials is in the 9/11 episode.
As who?
The photographer for the wedding.
Oh my God.
I was like, what? I thought this guy
And
was...
this is pre-A&W.
This was long before he was an A&W guy.
Wow. So he was just a hustling actor.
He's just like a
the
weird
rest of
kind
them.
of like side actor who gets a couple of lines.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
The A&W guy, I would have never guessed that, by
Yeah,
the way.
of course you would never have. Who'd have
Yeah.
thought that guy was anything but the A&W guy, but apparently he was in Friends.
Shit, that's so interesting. He
Yeah.
would be a fun one to look up online and see what his resume is like.
Yeah.
Because I bet it is eclectic.
Oh, I bet.
And then
yeah.
it becomes A&W and he gets like paid so much money that he just stops working basically.
Yeah.
Films 3 days a year selling not McChickens, whatever.
Grandpa burgers.
Like chubby chicken burgers and
Yeah.
Grandpa burgers, teen burgers, Beyond Meat burgers.
Just basically going to people on the street and being like, it's real meat. Can you believe that? And they're like, wow, I can't believe this is a real animal
meat.
and not just like mealworms and sawdust, which is what it was before.
Yeah.
Probably.
Who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, the
Shit.
A&W guy was on the 9/11 episode, or I guess the 9/27 episode. 'Cause it came out a couple
9/27.
weeks after.
Dang, that's really
And
interesting.
they don't acknowledge 9/11, but I didn't watch the full episode to see if they like did an establishing shot with the two towers missing.
Oh.
But also it means like, I don't know what the timeline of Friends is supposed to be.
Mhm.
Like if things are happening as
I heard it was
as we're watching.
1930 to 1940. So right on the eve of Pearl Harbor being attacked is
wow.
when the show ends, is what I was told.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So the two towers are always in the shot. Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Two
no,
towers weren't even built then. Anyways.
It's weird because you're watching a sitcom, the show ends one season on a cliffhanger, and then you resolve the cliffhanger in September.
Yeah.
So one would think that you're watching something happening in September, but we know that the stuff that happened in the story, literally minutes before in the story,
Yes.
happened months ago in our time. So you could think, you're just like, oh, Monica and Chandler got married and 9/11 is something that they're internally thinking about sometimes, probably. But they aren't because they
Oh,
didn't,
man.
because their wedding happened in the summer. So one would assume that it happened in the summer.
Why? But I wonder, like, the executives at NBC were like, let's not bring this up because what a bummer.
Well, I read an interview with one of the writers or the creator or whatever, and they're like, 9/11 really threw us for a loop because it made us realize that our show was not topical at all.
Right.
So they could not respond because they had never responded to anything in pop culture.
They probably couldn't figure out how to wedge it in.
Yeah, so for the characters to be sad that the two towers fell down would have just been like, well, that would have been bad TV probably anyway.
Yeah, and it's a comedy, like a very blissful comedy.
Yeah.
The stakes are so low in that show.
Yeah, it kind of celebrates that kind of 90s
makes me wonder
nihilism.
When did Seinfeld end? 90.
Seinfeld ended in 99.
I wonder what
they both kind of lasted 10 years.
Do you think Seinfeld would have brought up 9/11 if it had happened while the show was running?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because both shows are very similar in terms of they're just about characters in New York doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
And living their lives.
And
they're not political.
Have you ever seen anything acknowledge 9/11 and it go over well? Have you seen any media? Like the only thing that I've really ever seen acknowledge 9/11 is like somebody found a picture of that some random fan drew on the internet of the Sonic the Hedgehog characters remembering 9/11 and then just laughing at the fact that somebody was sad about 9/11, but they love Sonic the Hedgehog so much that they had to draw all of the Sonic characters sad.
Mourning
Loss. Yeah, would never forget, but they're all Sonic the Hedgehog characters and they're all crying, including Dr. Robotnik.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Arguably the guy who I would assume would be pretty stoked about the whole situation.
I know, but he was also sad.
Also moved.
He was moved to tears because that was the day that the world stopped turning. And Robotnik, even he knew. But his whole thing was he was just stealing animals. If you follow the games. He was just trying to get emeralds and stealing animals and turn them into emeralds, I think was the whole thing.
He's like Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just very concerned with animals, it seemed like.
Interesting.
Apparently Sonic the Hedgehog is an alien hedgehog.
I believe it.
That's what the movie that just came out that's the story it's going with.
Yeah, it was filmed here in Canada. It's filmed in Vancouver.
Right, in Vancouver, right.
Yeah, no, somewhere near Vancouver. Anyways, it's in BC.
Yeah, you can tell.
Oh, really? There's a lot of Canadian flags everywhere.
There's lots of Canadian flags. But anyway, we're not talking about Sonic.
We're not.
Friends.
Okay, that's
Seinfeld ended in 99. Friends ended in 2003, 4-ish, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was something that I was thinking about recently as I was watching Friends. Friends is like Seinfeld. The shows used to air one right after each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like must-see TV with Frasier. I'm not sure of the order, but Frasier, Seinfeld, and Friends, and there's probably another show.
That's a good night of TV.
There might have just been like a show that kind of came in and out. Like this show was on must-see TV, got canceled.
Right.
This show came in, got canceled. I think it was those three for most of the 90s, starting in the mid-90s. And then when Seinfeld ended, I can't remember what happened with must-see TV. But Seinfeld and Friends used to air right after each other.
That's awesome.
And they were both about New York people.
Uh-huh.
They were both they kind of had that kind of Gen X slacker anger kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Seinfeld himself is a Gen Xer, but there was kind of that 90s kind of who gives a crap kind of attitude about a lot of it, or just everything was cool and sarcastic and snarky.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the end of Seinfeld, the season finale is we acknowledge that these characters are bad people. That was the whole point. It's oh yeah, these characters are terrible people, and that was why it was funny. But they go to jail, so it's a moment of redemption for, I guess, everybody else in their life, or for the audience, I guess, for just yeah, these people are bad. They did something terrible, therefore they go to jail. That's how the show ends. And it's yeah, that's good. They acknowledge something.
Yeah.
Friends, on the other hand, never acknowledges that. In fact, they kind of celebrate these characters at the end, even though they're just as bad. I would say they're just as hateful, just as selfish, just as whatever the word you want to use. Hot take.
That is a hot take. Very interesting. Dang.
What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen a lot of Seinfeld, to be totally honest.
Oh, that's fine. I just mean about because I've just kind of been talking a lot.
No, it's good. What you're saying is very insightful.
Thank you.
I didn't. I think because I watched Friends so densely in such a short period of time, my like I didn't intellectualize it at all because I felt like I was just living that life. And then I think the reason I enjoyed it was purely superficial. Like I didn't analyze what I was watching. Obviously, sometimes problematic things would come up, or they would make jokes that have not aged well, and I'd be like, "Yikes! That really is evidence towards the age of the show."
Well, also go back to the Seinfeld thing. Is like the Seinfeld characters, as far as I can remember, were never transphobic.
No,
they were
weren't.
Never explicitly homophobic. They were never explicitly.
Friends was all of those things.
Friends just like took shots.
Yeah,
but
they did.
like for the lulz, and it happened a lot.
Yeah,
and it was like, they're like genuinely hateful people. They're just privileged white New Yorkers who, probably step over homeless people and like don't think anything of it.
Oh, definitely.
Except for Ross.
When I was watching, I was like, yeah, all these characters are well-rounded. That was my initial thought. I was like, Joey is complicated. He's not. Yeah. But I was like, he's complicated enough within the context of the show that I totally buy in.
Yeah, he seems like he's got some complexity to him as the show goes on.
I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole series. But I didn't think about it too hard. Like, it was like just eating popcorn. Visually eating popcorn is how I watched it. And then having now talked to other people, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of aspects of this show that are like complicated and flawed and at times very offensive. And I just didn't think about any of that while I was watching.
Yeah.
Instead, I bathed in Friends.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to get into the problematic aspects of the show.
I don't know if we need to.
No, really. I don't think. Yeah, because it's like it's a hard to wade into the waters of like, well, it was a different time. So.
Well, yeah, and other people are having that discussion. Perhaps more clumsily, perhaps less clumsily, perhaps fewer clumsily. But yeah, I love it. I love the show. I really enjoyed it. It was like good, easy watching.
I mean, yeah.
It's like smoking a cigarette.
Well, I guess maybe because I was removed from it because I didn't choose to watch it. It just kind of like was on.
I think you intellectualized
it. I could have like that distance. I could kind of keep just a layer of media analysis.
Yeah. I was looking for a show, and then I found this show, and I loved it. Now I am on to Cheers, which I love. I haven't seen enough of it to really evaluate how problematic it is or like how evident it is of its age, but I'm sure it's a similar problem. And that was the 80s.
I would actually be interested to watch the original Cosby Show.
Oh.
Not because I really want to see it again, but I remember it being like the most wholesome show.
I've never seen it. I don't even, what was the premise of the Cosby Show?
It was like pretty progressive for its time. Bill Cosby was the father figure. He was a doctor. His wife was a successful something or other, Claire. And then he had a bunch of kids. Thank you. He had a bunch of kids, and they were all funny in their own way. And it was mainly he was getting into trouble, but very innocent kind of dad trouble.
Right.
Just like he ate all the cake or something like that, and the cake was supposed to go to some bake sale. Or I don't. I'm just making up a plot line, but it was like that level of innocence. And he was always teaching his son and his daughter's lessons.
Oh, interesting.
And it was like a successful black family on primetime television.
So is there any, I wonder if there's any evidence in that show of who Cosby really was.
Exactly. That's what I'm wondering, because it was like, it was such a like positive thing for everybody. And it was like one of the best rated shows on television in terms of ratings.
Oh, wasn't
it? Was watched.
I thought it was number one for quite a while.
Yeah, it was.
Like he was making so much money. So many people were watching it.
Yeah, I watched it every week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
interesting.
Cosby Show was great.
When was it on the air?
Like late 80s, early 90s, I think.
Cool, right.
Yeah, so it was like, I'd be interested to see what that's like nowadays. Watch it again and see how it has aged. I doubt there's any like problematic aspects in it.
Yeah.
Maybe there is.
Of course, maybe they're extremely subtle. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, the difference is like the Cosby Show is made for children, right? Like it was meant to be watched by kids, whereas Friends was very obviously, same with Seinfeld, made for adults.
Right.
Like young, jaded adults, and they're like 20-somethings.
Yeah.
Who are like broke, living in big cities, just going through the trials and tribulations of being, trying to figure out their life and being assholes about it, basically.
I mean, it was
so
kind of
very
accurate
different
because
approach.
when you're in your 20s and you're like a white person and you have enough money to live in a super swank apartment in New York,
Oh yeah.
you're probably a real piece of crap. You're probably like
Whether you're aware
an
of it or
a-hole.
not, yeah, I'm sure there's some selfishness.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe it's accurate, and that's why we kind of laughed at them. But I feel like it's a South Park situation where like Cartman is a bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
and we're laughing at him because he's so bad, but people still idolize him because they don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's like, not to say that Cartman or South Park is the reason for all of society's problems, because that's a wild opinion to have. But
hot take.
But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are just like, I love Rachel, even though she's like vain and like
I
kind
love
of spoiled.
Rachel.
She's super charming. And she's super charming, and she's like usually pretty smart about situations she's in. She doesn't take a lot of BS from anybody.
What's interesting about her, I would say, is her arc is very short. It like happens in the first season. She goes from rich, spoiled kid to just like everyone else, like relatively humble, but just trying to get by and figure out her career. And then that's kind of where it ends. And then she's just having different romantic relationships, and then she changes jobs a few times. But her arc really kind of is just the first part of the show. And they use her as, I think, sort of the springboard narratively for the beginning of the show. And then Ross kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And then Chandler, Joey, and Rachel, or Monica, are always just kind of on the back burner narratively.
And then Phoebe is just like so far back.
Phoebe has nothing to do with anything ever.
Yeah, she just kind of like
has
the
eclectic
comic relief.
boyfriends.
Yeah,
and she's like the hippie friend. I feel like I don't know why when I talk to people, she's the favorite character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most people say Phoebe, and I think it's probably because she's the most like innocuous. She's the least flawed, but she also like sticks to her guns, even though her stance doesn't always make sense. And she's just like the weirdo.
Yeah.
And I think everyone likes that because she's the only one not hustling.
No.
Also, interestingly, everyone is career driven except for her.
Well, she does work for that big massage corporation at one point. Remember?
Does she switch jobs?
She was.
Oh man, I should have watched the entire season again.
She was an
before
independent
this minisode.
masseuse, or she was an independent masseuse.
Yeah,
and then she convinced Rachel to not go to this big corporate massage place.
right.
And then Rachel was like, I don't care, I'm still going. And then she went, and turns out Phoebe was working there all along.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was like, that's the situation. So she's a sellout. But then also, Phoebe's interesting because she lived on the streets.
Mhm.
She was homeless. She mugged people.
Oh yeah,
there's
her
an episode about
backstory.
mugging. And then she also has like so many parents' issues.
Yeah.
Like her mom commits suicide, and they get so many jokes out of that. Which is
What's
so
amazing
wild.
is her past is 100% awful and tumultuous, and it's just comedy gold for some reason.
Yeah.
She's always so self-deprecating and referencing her childhood and how awful it was, and then the audience laughs.
Yeah.
Which is I didn't really realize that until right now.
I appreciated how dark the show got sometimes.
Uh-huh.
And I appreciated that Phoebe was kind of like that, like the weird kind of vessel for that. Like it's such a strange choice.
Yeah.
But it was like, I appreciate that they did that at least. However, a lot of the time they're just laughing at just like, oh, it's funny because she was homeless, or it's funny because her mom committed suicide. Like it's like a wild take to have.
That's an insane bit.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, that is what's funny about it, is that she killed herself. And that's the joke. And it's like, I mean, it probably worked in the 90s because the audience is laughing.
Yeah.
But I guess who is making the audience laugh? Probably a button.
Yeah, a button and a light bulb behind a sign that says laugh.
Yeah.
Or applause. Yeah. Okay, interesting. What do you think of Friends? Is it good?
I would say it kind of holds up. You kind of have to turn your brain off, as you did, which is why you liked it so much.
I did it for 4 weeks straight.
Yeah,
I just didn't think.
You turned your brain off for 4 weeks. You were just like, I realize this is problematic. I realize this is homophobic, blah, blah, blah. But I still will watch it because there's enough redeeming qualities that I can overlook that.
Yeah.
Or maybe categorize it of just like, it was a different time, and just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can't forget that when you're watching it. You can't ignore that nowadays. But it's wild that we did back then.
Yeah.
You didn't even notice it.
Well, People just didn't care.
Yeah,
back
I
then.
remember
think they
watching it
care
in the
now.
90s and was just like, haha, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm. It's really a show that only worked at the time it was made.
Yeah.
If somebody was pitching that now, there's no way it would happen.
Yeah, and it's just so white. Like,
Oh, yeah.
There's only a few characters of...
Apparently, it
Of any
made headlines when they had the first time they had a character who's a person of color on the show. It made headlines.
Yeah.
Because everyone is like, oh my God, there's somebody black on Friends. And
Yeah.
they were freaking out.
I mean, it doesn't make sense if you think about it. Friends kind of represents this kind of like...
Also, New York is
suburban
extremely
kind
multicultural.
I know.
It's such a diverse city.
Yeah, but I think the stories that Friends tells is so white
Yeah, definitely.
that it's like, it actually seems weird for people of color to be on the show. Not because they don't belong there
Yeah.
or that they shouldn't be on the show, but it's just like, no, kind of just let these weird, selfish white people kind of have their like quarantine in that apartment and just leave them there and stuff. And then there's other more interesting things happening on other shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Friends is just like, yeah, these are just selfish white people. Let's just laugh at them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Interesting.
But Friends is good, is what I'm saying. I think Friends is still pretty good. Ended terribly.
Yeah.
We kind of were meant to just talk about the last episode.
Oh, yeah. And then we talked
The
about
Minisode
whole
was supposed to be
series.
the whole, yeah, but then I think you can't talk about the end without talking about the beginning, you know?
Well, the end is only what it is because of the beginning
yeah.
and
like-
how it really doesn't make any sense. I think it's interesting that you and I watched it with totally different mindsets, too.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this would have just been us being like, I didn't pay attention. I don't care. Or just like, it all happened, blurs together. Which one's Ross? You know?
It's a pretty long minisode.
That's fine.
Yeah. I guess they're minisodes, not in length, but in talking about the size of the screen the project was
Oh, yeah.
first
It's a
aired on.
minisode
It's a
because it's on
minisode. It's
TV.
like- exactly.
Yeah.
Or on a phone now. You can Netflix that
Oh,
shit.
yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, I've watched Friends mostly on an iPad,
interesting.
and it's wild that that's just how media is consumed nowadays.
What's it like watching something on an iPad?
Once you do it enough,
It's like everything else.
it seems weird to watch TV.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Once you watch an iPad for long enough, it seems weird to watch TV. Like there was a time where you would watch stuff on a laptop,
Yeah.
and that seemed like it was like a novel thing.
That's all I do. I mean, I have a TV and an HDMI cord, which is how I watch Friends, FYI.
Okay.
Into a tiny TV.
Mm-hmm.
TV about the same size as my laptop screen. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but watching stuff on an iPad is like once you do it, it's weird to watch TV because it seems like so much work,
Yeah.
which is such a weird thing to say.
Well, watching anything doesn't require any work at all
No.
physically.
But just being like, I can, like, if we're upstairs and we're watching an iPad, and I'll be like, you know what, we should just go watch this on the TV because then it'll at least look good.
Yeah.
And then we're not just both staring down at a little screen on a table.
Mm-hmm.
And you can barely see what's going on. And sometimes if we're watching something on YouTube, we're not even just watching on the iPad. We're watching it on the small screen within like the on the YouTube page. So
Yeah.
you get the comments, you get all the other videos and
You're
stuff on the
not
side.
even in full screen.
They're not even a full screen. So
Oh,
you're
that's
watching
so
something
funny.
that's like 3 feet away, and then you're watching it on a screen size that's like a couple inches by a couple inches. Is like a wild time to be alive for sure.
That's so interesting. That's the same as saying, like, I'd rather watch it on DVD than on VHS because I don't want to have to rewind the VHS.
Yeah.
But rewinding the VHS does not work.
No.
Most of them were automated, so as soon as the movie was over, it rewinded anyways.
Yeah.
Unless you owned a rewinder, which was sick, and it could do it in record time. But it's not work. You just push a button and wait. But
Mhm.
waiting, I think people think waiting takes work. That's like why people skip credits. They think that's work, or it's like consuming them, but it's not. You're doing nothing. That's not.
Yeah.
You're not exerting energy watching the credits.
No, but it feels like work, even though you're literally doing so little that you're bored.
Yeah.
I guess so. It's like being bored feels like work if you are consuming media at this pace or this rate.
Voraciously, I would
Yeah,
say. I consumed it voraciously. I also
Yeah.
watched Game of Thrones in record time.
Oh, you know what we should
month
do?
and a
We should
half.
do a mini-sode about the last episode of Game of Thrones.
Oh,
because I've never watched a single Game of Thrones episode.
Okay, this is what we should do. All the minisodes are about finales of.
Okay.
I also haven't seen so I've seen 7 seasons of Game of Thrones, and then right when I finished was when 8 came out, and I had no way to watch it for free. So I just didn't watch it. So I have no idea how it ends.
Yeah, we should do Game of Thrones finale.
It's a great idea.
I will only watch the finale.
Oh,
I've been meaning to do that, just to watch only watch the finale.
It's interesting. So I'll have seen the whole series, or like 94% of it, and you'll have seen
literally the last
1%
episode
of it,
and what many people consider the worst episode of the show.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I watched 7 seasons of Game of Thrones in 6 weeks.
Is that an accomplishment?
Each episode is an hour, and I think the first 4 seasons are 22 episodes. So that's a lot.
It is wild when people binge watch shows and it's like from the 90s or whatever. Like, I binge watched The Sopranos or whatever. I don't know if this is a good example.
Never seen The Sopranos.
I hear The Sopranos is still really good.
I have first season on VHS. You and I should sit down and
watch The Sopranos
rewind
on
all
VHS.
those tapes.
I have a VHS player.
Oh, shit. What a match made in heaven.
I also have the original Star Wars trilogy on VHS.
So do I, but it's the like 90s.
I have the 80s one.
Oh, so it doesn't
it's
have
the
all
one
that
with
shit
no
in
special
it.
effects.
Oh,
but
good.
I'm afraid to watch them because I don't want them to like get scrambled or get eaten, because it's like, well, but then also if I don't watch them, then they're not being watched.
Well, it's the same as putting a comic, like a comic book still in its wrapper on a shelf, or like a carrot, like a little toy or whatever, or having a nice car just sit in a garage.
Yeah.
It's owning it that brings the pleasure, not the use of it.
You're right, actually.
So enjoy that you have that, and that it's not sullied by the process.
I know that to be true every time I get a package from Amazon, because I order something and it's like, ooh, I want that. And I order it on Amazon, and then it comes in and I'm like, oh, great, I got the thing. And I just put it on the shelf and I never look at it again.
It's, I have the same.
Yeah. It's the
same issue.
So good.
Yeah.
Such a great feeling of just like, yay, I got the thing I needed, but then never will experience.
The process is identical to Christmas morning as a child. So I think it's a way for adults. Because if you buy something at a store, it's not a present. But if it comes to you, somebody gives you a package, that is the same exchange as a birthday gift or a Christmas gift.
Yeah, it does kind of have that same kind of feeling where you're just like, oh my gosh, I got the thing I wanted. Whereas you go to a store, when I go to a store and I need to buy something that I don't need, but I feel like I should get it.
Yeah. Then you go home.
I question myself. Well, no, I question myself in the store.
Oh.
And I will convince myself not to get something.
Interesting.
But I'm just like, I don't have the money for this, or I shouldn't be buying this, or whatever the reason of the day is. It's like, I shouldn't be buying this video game usually.
Oh, I was going to make a bit. I was going to say a joke about, I just order things off Amazon, take the box, and then just open it and then throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even put it on the shelf.
Or you just throw the item in the garbage?
Bought 50 Criterion Collection DVDs of famous Japanese films from the 1940s and 50s, and I just throw them all in the trash. Who needs that?
But you do that because you want the cardboard box. You want to play inside of it,
like a cat.
Like a cat.
It's true. If you see my house, it's just everything. You know how this is back to Friends. You know when Joey pretends to have a Porsche, and he pretends to have the Porsche, and then the Porsche moves, and he's getting all this notoriety on the street.
Yes.
And then he builds the likeness of a Porsche under a wrapping, and then somebody gets pushed into it, and it's just a bunch of boxes. That's all my furniture. That's my bed, my couch.
Oh, wow.
My rocking chair, my desk, my TV. Just little boxes. I love cardboard boxes. My apartment building's made out of cardboard boxes.
Wow. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. It's the real deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a tribute to Joey Tribbiani, one of the
most complicated characters ever
of our
written.
time. Yeah.
Who's more brooding, Walter White or Joey Tribbiani?
I mean, Joey in the later seasons when he's in love with Rachel is wildly sad.
Yeah.
To a point where it's like, oh, good, they made this character a little bit more complicated, but for a reason that I can't get behind.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Good for them for trying, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is the end of our first minisode.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for donating, because you only heard this because it's behind our Patreon wall. I assume. I don't know.
It's true. Yeah. You have to pay $75 for each episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we mail you a box.
What are your thoughts on Patreon? Because a lot of the time people will start a Patreon because they are doing something that's getting popular or that it has an audience, and then they're just like, oh, I should be making money off of this now because people are consuming this in mass quantity and I'm not getting compensated.
I think certain things require so much work. Like there are YouTubers making really accomplished, deft videos that take it takes them like 80 hours to make a 7-minute video. I think that's worthy of money.
Yeah.
You know? And what's the difference between doing Patreon and like getting a government grant for a dream project of yours? I think it's basically the same thing.
Well, it's actually worse to get a government grant because the fan of the Patreon is deciding to give that money away. Totally. If you get a government grant, then you are the taxpayers' money.
You're just yes-anding my whole point here. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm sure there are cases of it being abused, and people are just like, I want free money. That sounds great. Well, that's probably true of tax-based grants too.
Well, I think there's a strange entitlement that artists have also. I feel like we've talked about before.
Like Joey Tribbiani?
Yeah, I feel like some artists have an entitlement of just being like, I make the art, therefore an audience should exist for this art. Where it's just like, I want to make a podcast. Nobody has to listen to this podcast.
I don't even want people to listen to it.
Yeah, in fact, nobody will ever listen, could ever listen. So it's kind of wild to be like, oh, I want to make a podcast. Therefore, I should make money off of the thing. There's no built-in audience for, or that nobody listens to.
You're making a really good point.
Thank you.
I do think there's a time in which it does start to make sense. It's the same as doing ads. Mm-hmm. I mean, it'd be fucking crazy if I was like going around to local businesses being like, hey, I have this podcast with my friend Mike. We talk about movies. Can you pay us money for it? And we'll advertise you by talking about your business casually for 15 seconds. That's insane.
Yeah.
But if we had 1 million listeners.
1 million?
What?
You said 1 million.
I think that would be crazy. Yeah. Did I say 1 million? Million?
Yeah.
You said $1 million.
$1 million.
I'm slurring my speech. Yeah, I think there's a point in which it makes sense. But no, the entitlement of going like, well, there's enough people. Like I deserve an audience, therefore I'll do all the due diligence of getting paid.
Yeah,
is stupid. I don't think that makes any sense. And it is just an entitlement and an assumption. And also with projects, like this is a very democratic thing in that you can just make it and put it out there.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's good. That means 99.99% of it is shit.
Yeah.
And so also it's more difficult for audiences now because there's no cultivation of the end product. They're just getting inundated with all of these things, all these different shows. And they're like, okay, well, what's good? What's bad? And then probably most of what you listen to is shit. So it's tricky. You gotta, like, as Werner says, you gotta be kind of a garbage, not collector, but picker.
Podcasters are not garbage collectors.
If I close my eyes, I can picture him eating a shoe in front of me. Oh.